Just wanted to welcome everyone to the Tuckshop Network Meeting. And today we're talking about hot meals and smart choices. And what I have gathered with this current series of meetings that we've been offering with the topics around smart choices is that there's quite a lot of interest in the strategy, which is really fantastic because it's a mandatory strategy. So it's really great that people are interested in knowing more about how to implement that strategy a bit better in school tuck shops. So really pleasing to see at this meeting, we've had around 50 registrations. So currently, can't see how many people we've got online, but there's quite a few online. So that's really great to see. So I'll just start with an acknowledgement of country. The Queensland Association of School Tuck Shops acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of the lands across Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. We recognise that Aboriginal peoples and Torres Strait Islander peoples each have their own languages, beliefs, cultural practices, traditions and diversity within each culture. Okay, so just a bit of an introduction for me. I know I could see quite a few names on the screen of people that have been to these meetings this year. I'm Deanne Wooden. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Quast, and I'm also Project Manager. I deliver a lot of Quast membership services as well as the Healthier Tuckshop Support Project, which is funded by Health and Wellbeing Queensland, and these meetings are a part of that delivery of that project. My background is that I'm a dietitian, trained clinical dietitian. I haven't worked in clinical dietetics for a long time. I've been working as a public health nutritionist for a long time, with a particular interest in healthy food and drink settings, healthy food and drink environments. And that's why I was very keen to come and work at Quast almost 3 years ago now, just to help Queensland schools be a healthy food environment for our children as they grow and learn. My contact details are on the screen there, and you are welcome to get in touch with me by mobile or email anytime, or just ring our office number and get hold of me that way. So just a bit of an overview of the meeting today. Small update from Quast in the background, what's been happening. Just go through a little bit about smart choices, and some of that information will be a bit of a repeat from previous meetings, but there may be new people on here that might like to hear just the overall context of smart choices. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the meeting today, which is around how hot meals and hot savoury snacks are rated under smart choices, how to determine whether a product is amber or whether it is in fact red. I will go through a number of popular products, types of products, not in intricate detail, but there is quite a bit of detail in some of the slides in terms of nutrition information, but it's really just to demonstrate how you use that nutrition information to make that determination yourself. And as I said at the beginning, if there are any questions, please feel free to put your hand up, take yourself off mute and ask the question throughout the meeting. They're very informal meetings, and they are actually a chance for you to have interaction. So it's not just me like a talking head talking to everyone online. I really like to get the questions, because chances are if you have a question, there'll be somebody else online with a very similar question. So please feel free to ask any questions or to stop me at any time, because I do get on a bit of a roll when I'm talking about nutrition and smart choices. So just a little bit of an update about Quast. We have actually released quite a number of new healthy menu planning resources this term. And if you probably got an email or saw on our Facebook page towards the end of last year and earlier this year that we've developed healthy menu planning training. So it's an extra course that we haven't ever had before, and we've finalised that. I delivered the final sort of pilot of that course in February this year, and we've agreed with Health and Wellbeing Queensland going forward with our funding that was announced for 2024-25, that delivery of that healthy menu planning will be funded by Health and Wellbeing Queensland. So that will be free access, and we're hoping, dearly hoping, that we'll actually be able to deliver that training in the regions rather than making it just face-to-face in Brisbane, because we know that one, we've got members and tuck shops all over Queensland, and 2, that we don't get out of Southeast Queensland very often. And we also know that people who work in tuck shops love to get together and have a chat and problem solve together and share successes and challenges and that kind of thing. And that's really difficult to do when you're doing these sorts of things online. So we're really hoping that we'll be delivering that healthy menu planning training in 4 different regions, Department of Education regions, over terms 3 and 4 this year and terms 1 and 2 next year. So stay tuned for more information about that. We also are really experiencing a high demand for our tuck shop tune-up service, which is a complete audit of school tuck shops. And what that's telling us is that tuck shops quite often are in trouble, and it's no wonder that tuck shops are in a little bit of trouble, considering the increase of costs associated with doing business and the difficulty finding volunteers, the difficulty even of P&Cs finding enough people to fill their executives and then to be able to run the businesses that they run within schools. And so tuck shop tune-ups, currently we're booked out already for the whole of term 2, and we're currently taking bookings for term 3. So it's, in my view, it's not a great thing that tuck shop tune-ups are in high demand, because that's usually accessed, that service is usually accessed for when there's lots of problems. But if you think that your school, your tuck shop could do with a tune-up, please get in touch, but be aware that there would be a bit of a wait for that as well. As I mentioned, lots of new Healthier Tuckshops resources, and I've just put a little you can see there the Healthier Tuckshops icon. So on the Quast website, we've got tabs across the top, and one of those tabs is resources, and then a whole heap of icons come up on the screen. And the Healthier Tuckshops tab, if you click on that one, all of the resources in there are open access for anyone. So you don't need to be a Quast member to access any of those resources. And again, they've been developed through the Healthier Tuckshop Support Project, which is funded by Health and Wellbeing Queensland. So everything that we deliver as part of that project is available to all schools across Queensland. The other exciting thing that's coming up, I'm hoping, is a meeting with the Minister for Education. So Di Farmer took over that portfolio in November last year. We were supposed to have a meeting a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately a flight she was coming back from Rockhampton on was cancelled. So we're still trying to find another date. But the purpose of going to meet with the Minister for Education is to talk about, the viability of Queensland school tuck shops, how the government can support Quast to continue to support school tuck shops in Queensland to operate viably, and also to move towards healthier menus. So that's the main things that we are hoping to talk to the Minister about when we do get to meet with her. And just some upcoming training. Food Safety Supervisor course, that's been in high demand ever since the new standard came out last year, but the demand has settled down a little bit. Our next course is on the school holidays, so the student-free days, pupil-free days on the Thursday, 11th and Friday, 12th of April. So we have an online Food Safety Supervisor course on the Friday, and then I'll be running a face-to-face convener course on the Thursday and a Pathway to Profit course on the Friday. The convener course is full, but there's still probably four places in the Pathway to Profit course available if anyone's interested in signing up for that. And that's really just to give you a bit more information and a bit more empowerment about managing the finances of the tuck shop and understanding how to cost recipes, how to do your markup, how to understand your profit and loss, all of those sorts of things. So you understand when you're making changes to the menu, for example, what the implications are of those changes for your budget overall. Okay, so moving on to the main part of the meeting, just talking about smart choices in general. So smart choices is a Department of Education strategy. The implementation of the strategy is mandatory. It's not actually a policy. It's more so a strategy, but it is definitely something that the Department of Education expects schools to implement across the whole school environment. And smart choices is not just about the tuck shop. It's about all food and drinks that are supplied to students within the school environment. So any school carnivals, any school events, any P&C events, the tuck shop, all of those things, curriculum activities, all of those things are captured underneath smart choices. There might be the experience of a lot of people online today that don't find that smart choices is being implemented across the whole school community, but that is what the intention is for that strategy. It's quite old. It was written 2006-7, and I was actually on the working group when that strategy was being written back in 2006 and 7. And the Ready Reckoner was updated in 2016, and the last slight small update of Smart Choices overall was done in 2020. Smart Choices is based or underpinned by the 2013 Australian Dietary Guidelines, which are also quite old. They're under review at the moment, and that was announced in 2020 or 2021. We were hoping to have them ready by 2024, but timelines for these things always blow out. So now we've been told to expect the new Australian Dietary Guidelines 2025, 2026. So we know that Smart Choices is poorly implemented, and we know that there's many different reasons for this. It's not because people don't want to implement it. It is very difficult to do, and there's a lot of challenges with implementing that strategy, and that's why Quast is here as an organisation. We can help interpret Smart Choices for schools and for tuck shops, and we support and assist tuck shops to implement the strategy. We also advocate to the department around review and update. We see all of the struggles and the challenges of implementation of Smart Choices on a day-to-day basis. And, we have your ear. We hear from you about what is difficult about implementation of that strategy. So we are advocating to the department, and that will be one of the things that's on the agenda when I do get to meet with the Education Minister, to ask for a review and update of that strategy, and at the same time, not just for that to be done in the background, but for consultation of those who are tasked with implementing the strategy, and that is the tuck shop conveners and P&Cs out there, to have some say in how that strategy is updated. And of course, Quast intends to be right in the room when that's happening as well. So within Smart Choices, we know it's a traffic light system, and we have green, amber, and red products. And so just a little bit of background around amber. The reason why amber products are amber and not green is because they are processed foods, and they have some level of sugar, salt, and or fat added to them. So amber foods generally will have some nutritional value, but they have moderate amounts of those, what I call as a dietitian, negative nutrients. So saturated fat, added sugar, and or salt. And in large serving sizes, they can contribute to excess energy. So that's why the foods in the amber group are considered to be less healthy than the green products, but still able to be served as long as they're served in smaller portion sizes and looking for the healthier versions. Something that Smart Choices doesn't talk about very much is the level of processing for a lot of amber foods. And there's been a lot more evidence and research and evidence coming out around this terminology of ultra processed foods. And when you look at the foods that are in Smart Choices that are categorized as amber, they tend to be those foods that are ultra processed, which are, have a lot of these other additive industrial type ingredients added that have, and they also tend to be higher in saturated fat and salt and that kind of thing as well. So I'm sure you've been hearing about ultra processed foods in the media. They're sort of, I guess, the next evil thing that people talk about when we're talking about the problems of westernized diets. But you can be rest assured that a lot of discretionary foods and ultra processed foods are actually red, but some of those ultra processed foods are actually the amber products as well. So Smart Choices has two main documents. The first one is the strategy. The second one is the Ready Reckoner. So they're for different purposes, I guess. So hopefully everyone has seen the different documents, the strategy, and then the Ready Reckoner. So the Ready Reckoner is basically a list of foods in tables that are commonly supplied in Queensland schools. So those lists of foods are separated into the categories of green, amber, or red. And within the Ready Reckoner, there is no nutrient criteria. It's basically your first reference point where you go to work out whether a particular product or a particular food item, menu item, is likely to be green, amber, or red. And if you look, I don't have a picture of it, but I'm just going to hold up the Ready Reckoner. So you can see here that in the tables, you've got 3 columns. Oh, sorry, that's really bad. I should have done a screenshot of that, sorry. But there's 3 columns, so you've got a dot either in green, amber or red. Sometimes there'll be a dot in every single one of those. And then you need to look to the notes in the comments section of those tables to work out whether you need to actually look further into that product to see if it's rated as red or amber. So the rules, I guess, or the guidelines from Smart Choices around amber products is that if you've assessed a product as amber, the next thing is to not let amber products dominate the menu. And so the translation or the interpretation of not letting them dominate is to make sure that they are definitely less than 50% of the menu, because obviously we don't want any red products on a tuck shop menu. So if you're looking at, well, what's the ratio of green to amber? The interpretation of not letting amber dominate is to make sure that they're not more than 50% of the menu. The other guideline around amber is to avoid large serving sizes. And then the third guideline is to try and select choices, healthier choices within the category. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means as we go through the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to use Meatballs as a case study for really getting into the nitty-gritty of how to use smart choices to determine whether a product that you're looking at is amber or red, because meatballs can be a little bit confusing. It's not immediately obvious, I think, how to treat meatballs within ones that you buy in. This is not ones that you make yourself, but ones you buy into the tuck shop. So let's go through meatballs as a case study. So as I mentioned, the first thing that you want to do when you're looking at a food product or a menu item is go to the Ready Reckoner and find the section within the Ready Reckoner that is relevant to the product that you're looking at. So for meatballs, you would go to the lean meats and poultry section of the Ready Reckoner, and you can see here commercial patties, in brackets meat, chicken, fish, lentil, etc. And then you've got meatballs listed there. So that's the area that you're looking at when you're trying to determine whether meatballs are a green or an amber product. And what this tells you is that meatballs can be amber or they can be red. And that depends on how they're assessed according to their nutritional qualities. So you can see here, it clearly says assess against the crumbed and coated foods, frankfurters, sausages category. So that's a category within the Smart Choices strategy. So that's step one. You've worked out that they could be amber or red, and you need to look at the nutrition information to work out whether they're an amber or a red product. And here's the nutrition information here. So that's a nutrition information panel, NIP, and that's where you're going to find out whether this product is red or amber. So the second thing, as I mentioned, is to locate the nutrition information panel, and that will always be on the back of the package. So in Australia, any packaged and processed foods have to have a nutrition information panel on them, and they all have to have per serving and per 100 gram columns. Okay, so when you're looking at, I'm just going to go back to the previous slide. When you're looking at the crumbed and coated foods, frankfurters, sausages category, what you're looking at is the per 100 grams column. Okay, so sorry, I'm just going to go back to that one. So you found the nutrition information panel on the back of the package, and you found the per 100 grams column. So they're the numbers that you want to be looking at when you're looking at the nutrition criteria within Smart Choices. So now you're moving from the Ready Reckoner to the actual strategy that has the nutrition tables on there. And so this is the nutrition table where you will find the hot foods.
Excuse me, Deanne.
Yes?
Sorry, do you mind just making that full screen, because we're having trouble seeing it?
Oh, okay. Is it not full screen?
No, it's not. I don't know
Okay.
how you do it, but we can't see it very well.
All right, let me, I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll share again. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
thank
so
you.
sorry. I thought you were looking at that the whole time. Oh
That's
gosh,
awesome. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. Do you want me to go back to the few slides so you can see them better?
No, that's good. We're up to the nitty gritty now, so that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we're looking at the hot foods items assessed per 100 grams. So that's what the Ready Reckoner told us to do. And then we're looking for the crumbed and coated foods, frankfurters and sausage category. So that's this category here. Okay, so on the actual strategy, if you're looking at the strategy, these tables are found on page 13. Okay, so that's the Smart Choices strategy, and there's two tables on there. The first table is hot food items assessed per 100 grams, and the second table is snack foods and drinks. So anything that's served hot in the tuck shop, it's the table on page 13 with that nutrient criteria there, and that's where you go if you are trying to determine, is a product red or is a product amber? Do I need to look at the nutrition information of that product? If I do, that's where I go to find the numbers that I'm looking for. So we're crumbed and coated foods, frankfurters and sausages. All right, so the next step is to go back to your product and have a look at your the numbers against the per 100 grams column. So the three important numbers that you're looking for is the energy per 100 grams, the saturated fat per 100 grams, and the sodium per 100 grams. And this is the category that we're looking at, crumbed and coated food. So when you're looking at this nutrition information panel, you're finding energy, saturated fat, and sodium. And for the energy, you're looking for a number that's less than 1,000 kilojoules. If it's over 1,000 kilojoules, it means it's red. For the saturated fat content, you're looking for a number that's less than 5 grams per 100 grams. If it's over 5 grams, it's red. And sodium, you're looking for a number less than 700 milligrams. If it's over 700 milligrams, it's red. Now, any product could be, it might be under 700 milligrams of sodium, but over the 5 grams of saturated fat, therefore it's red. It doesn't matter whether it blows out on 1, 2, or 3 of these limits. If it blows out on any of those, it will be a red product. So I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but these meatballs per 100 grams are 1,101 kilojoules, and that's definitely over the 1,000 kilojoules. So that number alone means that this product is definitely a red product. If you go to the saturated fat, you can see that that's an 8 grams per that's 8 grams per 100 grams, and the limit is 5. So it's red from a saturated fat perspective as well. The sodium, it meets, okay? But because the saturated fat and the energy content don't meet the limits, then that product overall is a red product. Are there any questions on that before I move on? Because I know that's a little bit tricky. The real trick, I think, is actually working out where to start and then where to go next. Start with the Ready Reckoner, find out if the product is amber or it could be red. Look in the notes section of the Ready Reckoner, find out which category you need to use to assess that product, and then go to these tables, have your nutrition information panel in front of you, per 100 gram column for the hot food category, and have a look at your energy, your saturated fat, and your sodium. So for crumbed and coated foods, it's 1,000 kilojoules, 5 grams of saturated fat, and 700 milligrams of sodium. For the other hot food category, which is savoury pastries, pasta, pizza, etc., it's 1,000 kilojoules, 5 grams of saturated fat. So those numbers are the same, but sodium, it's slightly more restrictive. So you really need sodium to be less than 400 milligrams for it to be considered an amber product. So hopefully that's fairly clear. The next thing that you might need to do is to look back at the Ready Reckoner to see if there's any other conditions on serving. And so I'm pretty sure everyone online would know about the rules with serving nuggets in the tuck shop, for example. So when you're assessing a nugget product or a breaded chicken product, you need to go through all of those steps and make sure that the nutrient criteria meets those limits. But secondly, you cannot be selling, or you should not be selling, according to Smart Choices strategy, the crumbed and coated foods on their own without vegetables or salad or not as part of a meal. So that's an extra condition. So when you're assessing breaded chicken products or breaded fish products, you might assess them as amber, but they can only remain amber if they're served as part of a meal and not served on their own. The other requirement around those is that the portion size of the actual breaded meat products needs to be 150 grams or less. So they're two extra conditions on top of meeting the nutrient criteria for those particular products, which is just the crumbed and coated products, not the meatball. So if you had a meatball product and it did meet the nutrient criteria, that requirement to serve as part of a meal doesn't apply. But having said that, it's very unlikely. I mean, I guess I have seen it for meatballs to be served on their own. They wouldn't be very nice. But yeah, so always important to look for any other requirements within the Ready Reckoner in terms of how to serve different products as well. So that's a look at some of the ingredients that you would use within your menu items that you're preparing on site. But you might also be buying products into the tuck shop, which are already ready to serve, basically ready to eat. And so when you're looking at these products, I thought it was just good to talk a little bit about things like if you buy in a lasagna or a spaghetti bolognese or a macaroni and cheese or any of the other pre-prepared meals that you can just buy in and then heat and serve, and also things like noodles and these packaged processed products that you just add water to rehydrate. So the nutrient criteria that you're looking for with these kinds of products that you're buying in to heat and serve, and we will talk about pastries in a minute, but this is just your sort of your main meals and snacky hot food items. You go to the hot food, assess per 100 grams, and these products come under the savoury pastries, pasta, pizzas, oven-baked potato products, etc. So again, looking at these products on the screen, I'm not doing a case study with each of those, but you would need to be picking up the nutrition information panel on each of those products and comparing the numbers in the per 100 grams, not the per serve, but the per 100 grams column, and comparing them to these numbers. So I did have a look at this snack pot cheese and bacon pasta. I had a look at the nutrition information, and that one actually comes out as amber. I had a look at the chicken noodles, and that one comes out as red. And I think the noodles are red because the sodium is much higher. It's about 700 milligrams. So that one comes out at red, but the snack pot, and this is not an endorsement by Quast, because this is really not a very nutritious product at all, but it is something that can be served as an amber product within the tuck shop. And basically, any foods that you buy in that are pre-packaged and to be heated up and served, most of them, the best they will ever get is an amber rating, because they generally are not a great source of vegetables, and also they tend to be just on the limits of some of these nutrients as well. So cooking in the tuck shop is usually a better option if you can do it than buying these products in, because when you cook in the tuck shop, you control how much saturated fat, you can control how much sodium, sugar, vegetable content, that kind of thing. So moving on to cooking in the tuck shop, what happens if you are cooking products in the tuck shop? We have scheduled a network meeting on the 14th of May, specifically about, well, we'll be talking through smart choices and snacks and how to rate snacks, but also cooking from scratch in the tuck shop. So we'll do a whole meeting about that, but just for the purposes of today, there is actually limited guidance in Smart Choices. It doesn't really say much about cooking from scratch on site, these main meal options in the tuck shop. What we say, as you probably know, Quast does menu health checks for our members. So you can send your menu in and we'll assess your menu against Smart Choices. If there are menu items that are made from scratch in the tuck shop, we will generally assess those menu items as green if they don't contain some, a high level of those amber products. The only time that cook from scratch menu items in the tuck shop would be automatically red would be if they contain puff or short crust pastry, a high amount of butter, cream or full fat sour cream, and coconut milk or cream. And that's because all of these products are very high in saturated fat. So if you're using those ingredients, we generally will rate that product red. And that also, includes things like deep fried products like corn chips. So a lot of kids love nachos, and a lot of people love to serve nachos in the tuck shop. But as soon as you put chips into any sort of product or any deep fried ingredient into any main meal, it comes out as a red rating. But otherwise, most things that you're making in the tuck shop will be rated as green or at worst amber, unless it's got some of those ingredients. So like I said, we'll be talking through more detail about that on the 14th of May. So if you're interested, come along to that meeting. If you can't make that, we will record it and it will be uploaded onto the website, so you'll be able to watch it at another time. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through as many products as I can fit into this meeting. I'm just going to check the time. Where's my... Oh, yep, so we've got 25 minutes. So I've just gone through and pulled off websites, different products which, you know, we see in tuck shops on tuck shop menus all the time, just to go through the nutrition sort of profile of these products to give you an idea of how you might do this yourself. So this premium chicken nuggets Steggles product, I've pulled out the nutrients from that crumbed and coated foods category. And so the per 100 gram column for this particular product, 877, so that's under the 1,000. Saturated fat, 1.8, that's under the 5. And the sodium is 340, that's under the 700. So this product here gets an amber rating, but remembering that because it's a breaded coated product, it needs to be served as part of a meal. So it's a provisional amber rating until you're serving it as part of a meal in the tuck shop. Chicken goujons, really popular as well. This was actually a surprise to me because I do see this on quite a few menus, this particular product on quite a few menus. It actually is a red product because the energy per 100 grams is 1,010 kilojoules. So that number needs to be under 1,000 for that product to be rated as amber. So it would be great if Steggles, the company, went back and did a bit of reformulation and just slightly reduced the energy content of that product, and then it would be rated amber and able to be used in school tuck shops. Ingham's, so they've got a tenders product similar to the Steggles chicken goujons, and you can see here their energy is 895, saturated fat 3.1, sodium 442, so that's an amber product. And then I know that dino snacks tend to be really popular in tuck shops as well. And you can see here the numbers fit within those guidelines. So 773 for kilojoules, 1.7 for sat fat, and 310 for sodium. So that's an amber product. But remembering that all of these products, if they are rated amber, need to be served as part of a meal.
Deanne, just on that, what is classed as a meal? Like, what would you recommend serving with them? Because I know we've had the nuggets before and served them with a salad, but we've still been told they were a red food.
Okay, it has to have a decent amount of salad. So it's a very subjective process when we're doing a menu health check, for example. If we are sent in a menu and it says nuggets with carrot sticks, for example, we would say that's not really a meal. So it's about, I guess, the volume. So with your nuggets, you don't want more than 150 grams portion because otherwise it becomes a red product. And then you want the amount of salad or vegetables or the rest of the meal to be almost equivalent to the weight of your nugget product or your breaded chicken product. So having like a few carrot sticks and a little bit of lettuce isn't really making it into a full meal. What we're trying to avoid is for kids to get all of their energy from these really unhealthy, highly processed products and getting some more of those more healthy core foods, like if you were serving your nuggets in a wrap, for example, or serving it with fried rice or serving it in a sushi bowl, or, you know, putting those tenders into a nice bun with a bit of tomato and cheese and lettuce, then that becomes an amber product rather than serving the nuggets on their own. So that's what that means. Does that make sense?
we tried that, and we found that our wastage cost was going up because a lot of the kids are just walking past the nearest bin and dumping the salad out. Now, we do our tenders in a wrap and we do our chicken burgers with all the salad and wrap, so they're fine.
Yep.
But we just found that the chicken nuggets are there for our autistic kids, and they tend to not want a full salad and things like that with it. So like, we started providing that, but then in the end, when we were just watching kids walk away from the tuck shop and dump it straight in the bin, we're kind of going, well, what's the point in wasting a good salad?
That's a
when
very
the kids are throwing it away anyway, and it's really just for our autistic. Most of our nugget buyers are our autistic kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's a decision for the school and actually the principal. It is actually the principal's decision whether to implement smart choices as it's supposed to be implemented, or whether they'll make allowances for that kind of situation. What we find is if you have nuggets by themselves on the menu, yes, it's great for the kids that potentially have sensory issues around that, but you'll also find that a lot of other kids will order them as well. If you've got nuggets on the menu, they tend to be the most popular menu item. We all know that. So yeah, like I say, it's, you know, cost, we don't own the Smart Choices policy, and we're not here to say that you should not be doing that. But it's really a decision that you make within your school, with your parent community, with your principal, and, you know, maybe trying to put some limits around, you know, how often the nuggets are on the tuck shop menu. So maybe only offering them once a week instead of every day, or only at one break instead of both breaks, that sort of thing, to try and just...
We only have the volunteers for one break once a week. So we don't really look at it as, okay, well, the kids are ordering it 5 days a week. They only really get that one lunch break once a week to kind of do it. And our rest of our menu, it's fine. It covers all the guidelines. It was just that, it's just those nuggets for those kids that
I know
you can't have it touching anything.
Yeah, it is really tricky. And we know, you know, that neurodivergence is actually on the rise. Well, it's definitely being more diagnosed these days and more recognised. And for the kids that have neurodivergent, you know, background, so they might be autistic or Asperger's, or they might have other sensory issues, it is really difficult to have a tuck shop menu that meets the requirements of all of those different children that might be in the school environment. And that's where you really work with the parents of those children, because you don't want them to be missing out on the experience of getting tuck shop when all their friends are getting tuck shops. So yeah, it is something that I guess you just work with your school community on, and come to a compromise that works for everybody.
Okay,
sorry,
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just having a look at the questions that have come through the meeting chat. Sausages from a halal butcher. So you don't have a nutrition information panel. That's really tricky. I'll get to that one. Light coconut cream and milk. So what we do suggest, if you want to make a curry that has a coconut cream or coconut flavour, is to try using evaporated milk and then some coconut essence to go with that, because light coconut milk or light coconut cream is still quite high in saturated fat. Light coconut milk isn't so bad, but it's actually really watery and doesn't make curries very nice. I've found success in my own cooking in using evaporated milk out of a tin and then using some coconut essence, and that still keeps it nice and creamy, but has that coconut flavour going through. But obviously that's not going to be a vegan option if you're making your curry as a dairy-free option. And then Fiona's messaged here saying you can make a homemade sausage roll with vegetables and still fit in the amber section. So there is an option to do a nutritional analysis of your own recipes, and there is information on the Quast website about that. You can actually put your recipe into a tool called the Fazance Nutrition Panel Calculator, and there's a link to that calculator on the Smart Choices page on the Quast website. And if you're using a reduced fat puff pastry and add lots of vegetables and really have minimal amount of pastry, you might just scrape in terms of getting the numbers to fit within the amber category. Okay, there's another one here. We make potato mushroom pies in half a sheet of puff. Like I say, we generally would rate any menu item that has puff pastry in it as red. We don't have, I guess, the capacity to be doing that recipe analysis for every menu that comes in with, you know, lots of different home cooked items. But if that's something that you want to really satisfy yourself with in terms of generating, the Fazant's nutrition panel calculator will generate the nutrition information panel for you, and it will tell you the saturated fat, the sodium, and the energy content for that recipe. So feel free to get in touch with me after the meeting, and I can help you out with that. And a meatball suggestion that fits with the amber rating. I'm sorry, I don't know any brands of meatballs that fit. I can certainly have a look, but it's difficult when you're not purchasing from suppliers. You don't often get a full view of what they're selling, but that's something, you know, we're trying to be working with Bidfood and Superior a little bit more. So I will be asking if I can have a look at some of their products they're selling to have a look at the nutrition information to get more on that. Okay, so that's breaded chicken products. Pastry products are the next cab off the rank. So you can see here, these are all the 4 and 20, or some of the 4 and 20 range. So the Traveller pie, you can see here, it's less than 1,000 kilojoules, less than 5 grams of saturated fat, and less than 700 milligrams of sodium. So that gets an amber rating. The Lite pie also fits within those guidelines. Then you get to the classic meat pie, and you can see that the energy and the saturated fat are higher than the 1,000 and the 5 gram limit. So that one's definitely a red. And then I know that a lot of tuck shops will choose to put a pasty on the menu to cater for vegetarian students, but most pasties that I've ever seen all tend to be red because their energy and the saturated fat content of pasties tend to be too high to fit within Smart Choices. I haven't found an example of a pasty yet that actually meets these criteria. But if you do come across one, please let me know, and then you know, I can tell the next convener that comes along wanting to put a pasty on the menu to choose that particular brand. Any questions on the pastry products there? And then there's obviously another range from Homestyle Bakery, their Cool School range. And even though when you go on the Homestyle Bake website, it says all of these products are assessed and approved for school use, again, their pasty or pasty product doesn't quite meet the guidelines. The saturated fat is 6.4 grams per 100 grams and the sodium 713. So the Cool School pasty or pasty doesn't meet the guidelines, but their pie, the Cool School pie does, and the Cool School sausage roll and jumbo sausage roll both fit the criteria, so they both can be served. Their cheese and spinach roll definitely does not. You can see here the energy per 100 grams is 1,310, so that's much, much higher. And the saturated fat is also much, much higher. It needs to be less than 5, and that's 11.8. So definitely cheese and spinach rolls. Again, haven't come across one of those that actually do fit the Smart Choices criteria. I know a lot of tuck shops do source their pastry products from local bakeries, and that's really great because you're supporting a local business. But I would be doubting that any of their products would fit within the criteria. This is one of the quirks, I think, of Smart Choices, is that these products that meet the criteria tend to be highly processed, and their formulation is changed so they actually fit within those nutrient guidelines. And your local bakery can't do that. They can't reformulate like that. They're working much more traditionally. They're not working with factory level ingredients. So unfortunately, most local bakery products would be unlikely to meet the criteria to be amber against Smart Choices. And then I'm not sure whether anyone uses the Outback Pie Company, but I thought they're definitely available in Queensland. So I just thought I would pop those up there. So, you know, most of their range is not too bad for this. They had these healthy options range, and most of their healthy options range do fit the guidelines. And then this is just as contrast, one of their just classic products, the saturated fat and the energy are too high for that traditional pasty. So that one doesn't meet the guidelines either. All right, and popular pizza products. Not sure if anyone buys in their pizzas. Most tuck shops tend to make their pizzas on site, but I know some high schools will buy them in frozen and on sell them. So I've just, did a bit of Googling and found a few products that are available through some of those suppliers, and all of the products that I found ended up being an amber rating. So that's a pretty good result, I think, for pizza products. But pizzas are pretty easy to make in the tuck shop. So if you're making your own, that's great. They would tend to be, as long as they don't have pepperoni, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, most pizzas that you make on site would tend to be a green rating, unless they just have a processed meat and cheese. All right, so speaking of processed meats, I know that hot dogs are extremely popular on tuck shop menus, and they're also one that, when you go to the Ready Reckoner for Smart Choices, you'll see here that sausages, frankfurters and Cheerios could be amber or they could be red, and that you need to assess them against the criteria. So this is the criteria: the crumbed and coated, which is the same criteria for the nuggets. Frankfurters and sausages need to be assessed with using those numbers as well. And I couldn't find the nutrition information for the frankfurters and hot dogs that I found on the supplier websites. Unfortunately, a lot of websites don't provide that information. But when they deliver those products to you in the tuck shop, they should have nutrition information panels available. And if they don't, then you can ask your supplier for that information, and then use this table to assess those products against the Smart Choices criteria. And just around certain processed meats, so what you will see here is that all pepperoni and all salami basically are rated as red. So it says here salami is red, and pepperoni and I think it's called Devon. Oh yeah, Devon there. Generally, most of those products will be red, and salami and pepperoni are automatically red. So again, if you're making pizza in the tuck shop, try and avoid having salami or pepperoni on there, and using some other type of leaner and lower salt meat. And just a note on bacon. So you can see here that bacon can be amber or red, and the recommendations in Smart Choices is that bacon can be amber if it's lean, reduced fat, and or low salt, so a shortcut bacon. So I've got a couple of images here. This is not a shortcut bacon, it's the fatty part of the bacon, and then this one is the shortcut bacon. You can see that that's got a lot less fat. So if you're planning to use bacon on your tuck shop menu, try and choose your shortcut one as much as possible. And I know a lot of tuck shops will buy in the chopped up bacon, and you would really just need to have a look at the nutrition information panel for that particular product to see whether it's a reduced fat product or not. It's hard for me to know whether that, the origin of that is a shortcut reduced fat, reduced salt bacon, or whether it's the full fat version there. Are there any questions on that slide?
Yeah, and I've just been seeing online about Western Australia now turning ham red. Do you think we're heading in that direction as well?
So that was a change that was put through by the Western Australian Department of Health. They manage the criteria for the Western Australian policy, and that's based on evidence that has come out since the Australian Dietary Guidelines. So Smart Choices is underpinned by the 2013 dietary guidelines, and they're under review. Won't be, the new ones won't be available till 2026. But what Western Australia have done is looked further afield than just the Australian dietary guidelines for any other evidence around impact of different dietary components on human health. And the World Health Organization, it was back in 2015 actually, reviewed processed meats, and it was determined that 50 grams of processed meats on a daily basis can increase your risk of colorectal or bowel cancer. And so it was on the strength of that evidence that Western Australia has reclassified ham to be a selected red product. So what that means in WA is if you have ham on your menu now, you can continue to have ham on your menu. But if you remove ham from your menu, you cannot reintroduce it. So, and that's really to reduce, I guess, the impact of that change to the policy and to the nutrient criteria. And it's really around trying to reduce the frequency at which children are consuming these processed meat products, because, you know, we've got lots of opportunities to eat processed meats in our daily lives. If we can take those types of meats off the tuck shop menus or school canteen menus, that just helps reduce the exposure of children to those products, which increase risk of cancer. But your question was, is that going to happen in Queensland? We don't know. As I said right at the beginning of this meeting, we are asking for a review and update of Smart Choices. And it really depends, you know, I expect that if they did do that, that process would be led by the Department of Education, and that would probably consult with the Department of Health and potentially Health and Wellbeing Queensland, and hopefully us as well, and hopefully you as the stakeholders that are implementing this strategy. And what I'm hoping is that they will take a practical and pragmatic approach to, you know, what comes out of any review process. So I'm hopeful that Smart Choices will be reviewed, because there's a lot in there that makes it difficult and confusing for people to implement. And there's a lot of things in there that, you know, don't make sense. But, you know, I don't know what the outcome will be, whether Queensland will go the way of Western Australia. I know that South Australia did a review of their policy last year, and they didn't remove ham from the menu. So it really depends on, you know, the government at the time and the department that is reviewing these policies, which evidence that they're going to use, which doesn't sound great, because isn't evidence just evidence? But there's a lot of other considerations, and, you know, a lot of that might be around the practicality, and, you know, trying to really enable schools to be able to implement these strategies, and not just to throw their hands up and say, well, it's too hard, so I'm just going to ignore it. And that's really what we don't want, what QOS doesn't want as an organisation, is to have a policy or a strategy that's so difficult and so complex and tricky to implement that people just ignore it altogether. So, you know, that's what we're hoping for. If we get a review of Smart Choices, we're hoping that it will make it easier for tuck shops to implement it, and also a stronger support across the whole school environment, and not just expecting tuck shops to do it on their own.
Thank you. No
worries. And that was all I had in terms of my presentation. So we do have a couple of minutes, I think. So if anyone's got any further questions, I'll just have a look. There's one more message in the chat. We are a vegetarian tuck shop. Oh, that's interesting. Items have cheese added for protein, but seems to bump the item up to amber. Look, if you were to send your menu into QOS and we were going to do a menu health check, if it's something that you've made in the tuck shop, adding cheese to something that has maybe a bread or a cereal base with some vegetables or salad and cheese, in my view as a dietitian, adding the cheese adds protein and calcium and more nutrition. And I would still rate that product as green overall, because adding the cheese introduces more nutrition for the child that's eating that product. So I wouldn't say that it bumps it to amber. The strategy does say that dairy should be reduced fat. One of the other things that changed in WA, which people may not be aware of, is that all dairy became green, regardless of whether it's full fat or reduced fat. And that's also based on evidence that has come out since the Australian Dietary Guidelines. So the Heart Foundation, where I used to work for 10 years, many years ago, they put out a review of evidence, and, you know, really the evidence is saying that any products apart from butter and cream, any dairy products, the saturated fat in those dairy products are not as harmful to cardiovascular health as what we once thought. And it was on that basis that WA has changed to have all of their dairy products to be green now. rather than amber if they're full fat. So, you know, I would really like to see that happen in Queensland as well, because dairy is a really important food for children in particular. We know that children are not getting enough calcium in their daily diet. They're probably getting enough protein, but really it's the calcium that they're missing out on in terms of their overall nutrient intake. And to be able to get more dairy, milk and cheese into children would actually help with their nutritional outcomes overall. Okay, got a couple more questions. Tell me if potato chips, gingerbread and homemade muffin with fruit are allowed. So homemade muffins, if they have fruit added, definitely. Anything that's deep fried, so potato chips, automatically red. Gingerbread, it would be assessing the nutrition information panel. If you're making that yourself, the trickiest part with these sweet baked snacks, and that's something that I'll be covering in that meeting on the 14th of May when I'm talking about sweet snacks. The trickiest thing is trying to get enough fibre, because there is a nutrient requirement for sweet snacks around fibre. It needs to have 1.5 grams of fibre per serve. So a lot of snacks that you would make yourself, if you're not including fruit or, you know, heavy oats or wholemeal flour, then they would tend to be, unfortunately, not enough fibre in those to be able to meet the guidelines. Can you serve your nachos with roasted potato or wedges, as you can't serve them? So yes, if you roast your potatoes yourself and then serve that as the base to the nachos, then that would be a really good outcome. If you were using a frozen product, you would need to assess that against the criteria. So that category, the savoury pastries, pasta, pizzas, oven-baked potato products. So they need to be not deep fried in the manufacture. If they meet those guidelines, then they can be used as a basis for nachos. Okay, we try to keep cane sugar down. Is coconut sugar considered better? Not really. But, you know, a little bit of sugar added to a homemade product, especially if it's made with wholemeal flour and has fruit added, a little bit of sugar is not the huge concern here. We're really trying to avoid all of those packaged products. And, you know, we really want to encourage tuck shops to be doing as much cooking in-house as possible. What about air fry? Air frying is an excellent way to cook, you know, especially frozen products or, you know, products that you're making yourself in the tuck shop. If you've got an air fryer, you would know you really don't need to add very much fat at all. So air fryers are an excellent appliance, but they might be a little bit small for some tuck shops. It depends how big your air fryer is, but, you know, we don't really want to see 5 air fryers lined up on a bench because that takes up a lot of room. But, you know, if you're air frying 1 or 2 items and you've got a small service, then yeah, definitely air fry is a good option. And then filo pastry, is it considered a red item? No, filo pastry is very, very low in saturated fat. So that's why puff pastry is red, because it's very high in saturated fat, but filo pastry has very little fat added. And if you're making something with your filo pastry, if you're using olive oil or another mono or polyunsaturated oil between the layers and not butter, then you can use filo pastry in place of puff pastry, no problem. Ice blocks, is there a nutrient guideline? There certainly is. Again, in the Smart Choices, I keep referring to this little really handy card which came out when Smart Choices first came out. We've got a few here in the office, but I think they're as rare as hen's teeth these days. But it's got all the nutrient criteria for Smart Choices on it. So there's sugar sweetened drinks and ices. For ice blocks that are just sugar and water, they have to be less than 300 kilojoules per serve and no more than 100 milligrams of sodium per serve. But that information is in Smart Choices. It's on page 13, along with the savoury pastries, etc. There's a whole table with your snack foods and drinks. And we'll talk more about the snack foods in the meeting on the 14th. Any other questions? That was a lot of questions by the chat function. No? Okay. Well, it's 3:02. So thank you once again, everyone, for your attendance today. And I hope you got some good information out of the presentation. I'm really sorry that it wasn't in full screen for those first few slides. And if you wanted to go back, obviously you can watch it on the website, and we'll just probably pop up a Facebook post with notification when that goes up. And then our next meeting is on Monday, the 22nd of April. So it's week 2 of term 2. And we'll actually be having a demonstration by an online ordering company called School24. We'll be going through a demonstration of their product. And there'll be a special deal for cost members or people who attend that meeting if they decide to take on that supplier. So we're really excited about that. Oh, hang on, there's 10 more messages here. 10 new messages. Oh, lots of people saying thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Talk to you later.